and hit the road on the showed. Okay. What we're going to do is today is because we just really went over the First Amendment. I want these days, because it is so important, to go over a couple of recent things on campuses nationwide that have to do with the First Amendment, to show the things that we talked about are relevant and challenging today. So I'll go over a few. In previous live classes, I separated people into groups and then the group would say what they thought of it. Here we have a big enough group. I would love people to chime in to see what they think. When we're done with that, when we're done with that, as you see down here, we have an extra credit First Amendment thing. A one question quiz for 5 points, just to prove you showed up. Anyway, real life stuff that happened in the last year or so. Students reported incidents of sexual assault to the police. When asked for a quote from the student newspaper, the dean asked the students not to report the story because it would hurt the school's reputation and devalue degrees. Later, the school newspaper asked the advisor, who is a friend of mine, not to run the story. Is that legal? What do you think? It was an arrest. An arrest is a public record. Sexual assault on campus. What do you folks think?
It's got to be paid for, doesn't it?
Excuse me?
Okay.
Couldn't hear you. Turn it up. Yeah, you can just chime in, unmute yourself. This is what we face on campus all the time. That, yeah, things happen, but it makes the school look bad. Is that a limit on the students' free speech? Actually, yes, it is. Students have a right to report fact. What should they do? That's the hard one. Because do you want to fight the president of your school when they say no? As a matter of fact, my friend who was the student newspaper advisor lost his job over that. He had the law on his side, but the political practicalities are different. But see how these things get
need to breathe.
Hello? Okay, again, I like to hear what y'all think. Okay. Duke University refused official recognition to a Christian group. CREW, for those of you who are members, but I have a nephew who is very active, because it does not recognize LGBT students as members. The group may operate on campus, but cannot be an officially part of the campus, no school funding, no office space. Duke is a private university. Was the group denied their right of religion and free speech? Key here, Duke is a private university. That a private school can do whatever it wants. Now, is it right? I don't know. But because it is a private school, they can limit free speech. I don't think a public school could. At UTC, white supremacist group put up terrible racist things during an African-American program. Administrators allowed the signs to remain up, but limited where they could be displayed because we have rules that say you can only do things in certain areas. Should they have been taken down? Again, hate speech. Well, as a dear friend of mine once said, there is no right not to be offended. They have a right to be hateful, but we have a right not to make the campus go crazy, so they can put them in, they put the flyers in a place where any other flyer can go, bulletin boards. So they don't have to take them down. The school was forced to keep them up, but in a certain place. But again, free speech is hard. And you notice I am taking examples that challenge both left and right people. Senator-elect at UTC student government was asked to resign because she made pro-Trump chalk things on the sidewalk. And the student government said that represents, that Trump represents a certain viewpoint. Vice Chancellor is staying out of the debate. Neither the student or would require, or nobody's in trouble because again, it's free speech. Then, and so the chalkings went up again. So yes, they tried, again, this student had her free speech and her free speech denied because she was expressing a political viewpoint that a lot of her peers did not like. Beloit College canceled a lecture by Eric Prince, the brother of Betsy DeVos. Young Americans for Freedom, a conservative group, sponsored it. Protesters said, we don't want this guy on campus. And the university canceled the appearance because they didn't want trouble. Were they practical? Yes. Were they denying the students free speech? Maybe. Again, is hard. University of Alabama had resigned after Breitbart did a story saying that here's relevant today. University of Alabama, the head of student affairs had tweeted in the past that the police are inherently racist. And he was forced to quit. He got fired because he was, and he's an African American, said that police are racist at the University of Alabama. Here's what he wrote. The flag represents racism. Police are part of that system. He officially resigned, but he was forced to quit. He was essentially fired. Was that right? Again, he has his free speech.
I think that's debatable.
Yeah.
Some of these sound like they're really biased.
That I'm biased?
No, not you. Like some of the examples sound like they're biased.
Yeah.
They are biased.
Well, I'm trying to show examples from, again, where conservatives and liberals are both facing stuff. They are. And that's what we say in history. Everybody's biased. The thing is in this one that you have a right to free speech, but you don't have a right to have a job. A job is not a right. A job is a privilege. That's something I should have mentioned. A job, it's like having a driver's license. There's no one says you have to have a driver's license and you can lose your driver's license. A job is like that. So no one put him in jail for tweeting that. But he, you know, are
and consequences for it.
yep, there are consequences.
While freedom of speech, we are allowed to say what we want.
Right.
We're only protected from government persecution, not what anyone else thinks.
There you go. Excellent, Nigel. We're not protected.
Not protected from the consequences that may come from what you say.
Right. We are protected from the government. The government can't put you in jail, but we are not protected from what other people do. That was really good. And what other people are, so the university is your employer. Excellent. Okay, Harvard College announced professor would stop serving as a dean. He was the first African American, but when he protected a person in a sexual offense case, he defended Harvey Weinstein, who was accused of sexual harassment. And again, you don't have a right to a job. But yes, there, as someone else mentioned, there's some real, I don't know if, yeah, there's some real bias that, a bias for protecting your university and for protecting diversity. Now, what happens is sometimes protecting one value, like supporting diversity, puts you in conflict with supporting the other value of free speech. And that's difficult. Student of public community college said he could not distribute constitutions outside a free speech zone. We have free speech zones here on UTC. You can only express your free speech outside the library, outside Chamberlain Field. You can't walk into a classroom and protest. Is that an unfair restriction on free speech? A lot of lawsuits about that. No, you can still express yourself. You know, you have the right of free speech, but that doesn't mean you could run into a classroom and scream whatever you want to scream when you want to. So yeah, that is a fair limit.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing is, did anybody ever consider, did the framers of the Constitution ever think of the F word? This is one of my favorites.
No,
The t-shirts with F Duke from the University of Maryland were all over. Said that they had that the committee punish people as a last resort, have do not have to fan code of conduct. Yes, very careful, but they don't want you to say F the opponent at a basketball game. You know, they can punish people as a last resort. Is it legal that you could punish somebody for saying something rude at a basketball game or wearing a rude t-shirt? University of Maryland says it can. Again, there is no right not to be offended. So you can be, the Constitution and the First Amendment defends obnoxious speech. It defends hate speech. Because in 1787, it could have been considered rude to advocate that women or people of color could vote. So what is considered rude now may not be years from now. May not have been. So yes, free speech does not defend a particular viewpoint, conservative or liberal. It defends your right to say something. It defends your right to be wrong. It defends your right to be rude. It defends your right to be hateful. So, but on the other hand, as Nigel pointed out, and absolutely, you're still responsible for the consequences of your speech. You're not going to go to jail, but you can get in trouble with your friends. You can get in trouble with your work. And work is not a right, it's a privilege. But again, the founders of the Constitution, they never saw any of this stuff coming. They didn't, they just saw it as a concept. What we do with that concept, we're still working on. So, I mean, this is stuff, again, that even though it's 137 years old, 133 years old, 233 years old, it is still relevant and we're still wrestling with these issues. So that's where I'm going to stop on this history stuff. We will review for the test next time, and we will have a test next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. All right, any other questions? Okay. I appreciate it.